Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are just going to give everyone a couple minutes to roll in here. It's just now the top of the hour, so we'll let everyone kind of get settled in. Just wanted to get us started here. All right. If you're just joining us, thank you. We're just giving everyone a couple minutes before we get started. I always like to start with a little icebreaker question just to kind of get us flowing while we're waiting. I was going to ask a April Fool's related prank question. If anyone has any like top tier pranks that they'd like to share, I would always love to hear. I am quite the prankster myself, but just to make it a little easier in case don't make anyone you don't have to think too hard here. We were just talking right before we started the webinar about time zones and where you are. So share in the chat where you're joining us from today. What city, what state, what time zone? I am in Southern California, so I'm on Pacific time. I think we've got a little bit of everyone, a little bit of something of everyone here on the group with us today. So Brandon, where are you joining us from?
Yeah, for sure. I am currently in Colorado in kind of like the Metro Denver area. Yeah, mountain time zone, along with our CEO and our CRO, who also happens to be on the call right now. So
Arun, what about you?
Yeah, New Jersey. So my country, New Jersey, I love it. That's where I'm at.
And Bill, what about yourself?
Same country as Arun.
we're
So I'm in Jersey. I'm right outside Philadelphia, so in Eastern.
Looks like we've got people joining us from all over. I see Houston, Nebraska, New York, Arizona, Ontario. So we've got Canada. And then I see Dan, our
I was
CEO,
gonna say, is that Dan's
gave us a
comment about
great prank. He
Oreos
says,
with toothpaste?
yeah, my kids spilled Oreos with toothpaste and then took them to school for their classmates.
Oh, that's
That is
dangerous.
classic. I hope, and I bet Dan, your kids were just cracking up and having the best time with it, which makes it all the better. So I hope that their classmates get a kick out of that. All right. So
Yeah.
gross. Yeah. I've seen some where like the parents took a bowl of cereal the night before and they put it in the freezer. And so then when they go to serve their kids breakfast the next morning, they get a frozen bowl of cereal. I thought that was low lift, pretty clever. Definitely could get the kids laughing. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for participating. Let's go ahead and get started. This is our monthly feature release webinar. Thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, we're really excited to have you here. If you've joined us the last few months, welcome back. I think you kind of know what to expect now. This is a series we rolled out at the beginning of this year to bring you a way to see all of the new features that we're releasing, right? I say this every time, but our product and engineering team is incredible and they are pumping out new features inside of our platform to bring you the best of the best. And we want to make sure that you're seeing all of those and you know what they are and you know how to put them to use. So that's what this webinar is for. We're going to show you everything that launched last month in our 26.3 release. I'm Zoe. I am our partner marketing manager, which is a little bit of a shift for me. I was our partner success manager before. And with that, we have Brandon, our senior solutions engineer, and Arun, our senior staff engineer. Did I get that right?
Engineer too, but close enough.
Staff engineer too.
Works.
Okay. As always, joining us. And then I'm really happy to introduce you to our new partner success manager. So joining our team today is Bill Taylor, and I'm going to give him a couple minutes to introduce himself.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the introduction. So, yeah, hi everybody. I'm very excited to be here, joining the Cork team. Already, just thrilled to be joining an awesome team. So, a little bit about me. I spent almost a decade at this point working with MSPs, helping them grow and scale their businesses and just deliver more value to their, customers. And so that's really a big part of why I really liked Cork. The focus on driving and strengthening cybersecurity and building trust with the clients they serve really aligned with what I know and love. And I'm just so excited to be here and to work with all of you. So looking forward to meeting everyone over the coming weeks.
Thanks, Bill. We are really happy to have you on our team. And yeah, like Bill said, we will, be introducing him to all of our partners throughout the next couple of weeks. Of course, if anybody needs anything or has questions, you all know who to reach out to, and we're all here for you on the Cork team as well. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Brandon to kind of take us into what's new this month.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks, Zoe. Yeah, we are kicking down the road for, kind of diving deeper into assets and remediation and all of that stuff. So we got a couple things to show you today that are kind of in that same vein. We'll have some teasers. We're also going to have some, I guess we would call them like smaller mentions, but still relevant. And we'll kind of touch on all of those. But the first big thing that we want to go over is our brand new feature, which is actually asset analysis. So let me get my screen shared out here. And there we go. Can I get a thumbs up? Let me know that's visible from said panelists. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So, jumping right into it, what asset analysis is, like at its core, is all of the filtering options that we have kind of done in terms of the clients page. And when you go into a client and you look at both the filters for the endpoints themselves, as well as the category filters that we have in there, all of that is now aggregated underneath the assets tab. And so what our dev team did and what we kind of talked about with the sales team and are just trying to figure out how to do is make asset to asset comparison much easier and frictionless in terms of when you were trying to make sure that product A is in the right place or product B is replacing product C. And so a lot of that was inspired by this. This will have iterative updates as well, where we're going to start including reporting, scheduled reporting, et cetera, things of that nature, a little bit of updates on the kind of the queries that we can even do as well. But yeah, to jump right into it, the first thing you would do is that and this update is live at the moment. So if you logged into your Cork platform, you've probably noticed that there's a brand new tab on the left-hand side that says assets. And in here, there is going to be an analysis type. And I would highly encourage just clicking this little question mark here, because this actually details the types of analysis that we do now and kind of our reasoning and explanation for when that analysis might come into play. So the first one, the white space, I would actually say that this is probably going to be the most common one. But the idea is that when you are onboarding a brand new, let's say, client or vendor or replacement tool, whatever it happens to be, when you are onboarding something, you want to compare that against your source of truth to make sure that it's actually in place. So if you are rolling out a brand new EDR tool, right, and you know that all of your clients are inside your RMM tool, and you want to make sure that the EDR tool is deployed to all those same endpoints that the RMM is seeing, that is what white space is for. So you notice if I come down here, I can generate it for all of the clients in my environment, or I could even do a specific one if I'm just working on somebody in particular. But then in my source of truth, this is where I can get into the exact comparisons as well as additional filtering options that kind of really allow me to narrow down what I want to do inside the platform. So for the vendor type, I'm just going to select RMM here. I'm going to use a real basic example of we want to make sure that everything that is in the RMM tool also has an EDR component. So because I only have one RMM integration, I would technically just click ConnectWise or leave it blank. Or if I had multiple integrations like I do here, I can just leave it as is. I'm just going to do ConnectWise for now. And then in the vendor type, I will do EDR. And I want to see, it doesn't matter to me which EDR. I just want to see that there's like some EDR vendor in place, right? So this would encapsulate if you are kind of running multiple tools in that regard, or if one of your customers is on one, but not the other, you can just kind of leave everything as is. Or you can even add optional filters that say, I want to see everything that's also seen in both of these vendors, or maybe it's, I don't want to see what's in this other vendor in comparison to the main subject. So a lot of options there just in terms of making sure that you have your right products in the right place. But what I would do is the first thing I would actually recommend to do is hit save query right after generate analysis. So we hit generate analysis and then we hit save, and this actually will give it a title. So we can say RMM against EDR and hit save. And what that does is it actually saves this query up here and then allows me to rerun that without having to enter the specifics again. I don't believe there's a limit on how many we can save either. And then once it does that too, it also applies that title, the save query to the title of the actual report as well. So, when we are doing the description and actually looking at it, then we know what exactly is going on there. So in the description here, you can see it says comparing RMM ConnectWise against our EDR platforms. So these tools right here would be in our RMM, but they would be missing from any of our EDR platforms that we have integrated into the platform. So at this point, like because I'm onboarding this, I would want to make sure that I go into Sterling Cooper over here or Los Pollos and see what's going on with these machines, see why there's not an EDR agent on there, and then investigate it from there. And then I will use the same example, but opposite for the zombie asset. So let's say I'm doing the opposite, right? I want to make sure that all of the tools inside EDR are not, or sorry, all of the endpoints that are in EDR, because I'm offboarding it, are not still in RMM, in which case, if they are in there, that kind of tells me that I need to deprovision them and get them out of the platform. So I'll run the same report there. And you'll notice this report is much bigger. So these would be all of the endpoints that are in EDR that are no longer inside ConnectWise ASIO. So if I was offboarding this, this would tell me that these are actually the endpoints I need to go in and make sure that I remove that EDR tool from. And if nothing else, because the integration tab is, of course, optional, but of course, if I give it a label here and hit generate, the description becomes a little bit more clear and will kind of just tell you what exactly you're comparing against. So we do kind of recommend putting that in there as well, but it's going to be arbitrary. It's going to be up to you guys. So the final asset type, analysis type that we do is what's called a stale asset. And so there's two different mechanisms to this. The first stale asset viewpoint is actually a feature that we introduced a very long time ago. We call it a potential agent savings. And you can do a stale asset analysis somewhat from this view where I just want to see if anything hasn't checked in within a specific amount of days. We kind of recommend making this like your decommission period, right? If it's 60, 90, 120 days, if you have to regulate that for compliancy and it's something like 180 days or even a year, you can put that in. And that would just do a raw check against the time that that particular agent from that vendor has been seen inside the platform. So when I click that, you can see underneath the device name, like this Stark 14 or as part of Stark Industries, has not checked in since 2023. Probably need to do something about that, either hide it or get it out of there so it's not costing me any potential money. And in the assets page, this actually compares it against another product's check-in. So what I would do for this is probably select the RMM tool again, because anything in the RMM tool I would expect to be checking in on a very active rate. And then I would do the same thing, just do EDR here and generate analysis. And you can see right now we are good. That means everything that is in both RMM and EDR is checking in at the exact same time. So this is exactly what we would want to see. And the time frame that we kind of look at for that differentiation, right, is 2 weeks. So if something has checked into the RMM tool, let's say today, but it hasn't checked into the EDR tool in 3 weeks, that's actually what would appear in this list down here. You can also export these results as a CSV file over here. And like I said, too, one of the things that we're going to bring to this as it continues throughout the beta and as we kind of gather more feedback about this is the ability to make these into schedulable reports that can be sent out to, whoever, if certain teams want to be in control of certain vendors, you can kind of configure that, or even if it goes out to a customer, I'm sure we'll be able to kind of configure that as well. And when I pass the torch over to Arun, I'll let him touch on kind of like the future of this and what we want to see. But for now, I'll actually pause for a second and just see if there are any questions in the chat about this. And if not, I will actually move on to the next thing.
I didn't see any questions come in, but that is a good reminder that if you have any questions throughout, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We will definitely make sure we get to those, and we want to make sure that everyone is really comfortable with this new feature and really understands it. And also, if you have any feedback or thoughts on how you might utilize this, we would love to hear from you as well. So don't hesitate to put that in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, looks like we are good for now. So the next thing too, like the whole, the idea of the assets is that we're trying to make it easier to digest all of this data. We are very much focusing on kind of like the security aspects of these things. And to that end as well, we do kind of want to revisit some of the two newest features that we also launched. One of the big ones being the Cork score and a little bit more explanation about like how this is being influenced and what you can kind of do to get that up. And then we also have kind of like a bit of a shadow launch here for something called peer comparison. And I'll actually go over this first. So peer comparison is pretty cool. So what it does is it actually looks at all of the clients or partners inside our Cork universe, so to speak. and you get an idea of how you compare to your peers in terms of software vulnerabilities. And you can see the metric that we actually use for this is the priorities. So there's the critical, accelerated, and routine. And so you can see here that Los Pollos at least is doing, or like Cork Build Technology Partners is doing pretty well when it comes to accelerated and routine, but we probably need to step it up a little bit when it comes to the critical alerts. When you go in here, and if you look at the very bottom here, it does tell you which kind of group you're going to fall into. And I believe it's less than 50 clients, 50 to 150, and then 150 and above. Those are kind of like the three categories that we look at in terms of partner size. But this just gives you an idea of kind of like what other partners are doing inside the platform, as they take advantage of our tools and kind of our remediation options. This can obviously help, kind of make these numbers better. And then this in particular would be saying, right now we are averaging 2.2 vulnerabilities per device, which obviously is not good. We should get that down to zero or at least as close to it as we possibly can. So, but yeah, that's just underneath Risk Insights. That should also be live for everyone once you check into that. And then the reason why I bring this up in relation to the Cork score is because one of the biggest influencers of the Cork score is that vulnerability component. We've had it in there for about a month now, and we've kind of done a lot of onboardings where we kind of take a look at what is actually being pulled from the vulnerability standpoint. We do see quite a bit of browsers are probably the most guilty culprit here in terms of vulnerabilities. And to remediate that, we also included the ability to generate an installer script that can be used to patch this particular vendor out of that particular vulnerability that it's detecting. So when you go into the software vulnerability section, and if you keep clicking down into the actual device or the program itself, you'll get to this page where it lists, the risk scores, whether it's a known exploited vulnerability, links to the actual vulnerability itself. This will directly over to NIST. The resolution over here, though, is an indicator that this CVE has been patched and fixed in the latest update of that software. And you can see in this little tooltip here, this tells us which version has actually fixed that. If I hover any of these, it's probably going to be different versions. So what this does is it references the version that had the fix for that and puts it in there in case you want to patch up to a certain level. And what I'll do here is I'll hit generate installer scripts, and we'll go with winget for our package manager. And I'm going to delete Chromium out of there because for whatever reason, all of the package managers have it listed as Edge. And then what I do from here is I can actually click on either one of these, but I'll click on the PowerShell script. And then this would, of course, give me those options to select the version of software that gets installed, as you can see here. So if you know that a particular version, like the latest version of the software, is going to break some part of the environment, right? You can actually update to a slightly newer version that maybe still patches that particular vulnerability, but doesn't break the bank, so to speak. And then you can also redefine the scope as well if you want to do it by machine or like a user group. Because we are very kind of security conscious with this as well, right? We don't want to just be sending scripts out to RMM tools that you guys can't vet. Right now, we do a plain text kind of display of what the script is. And then if you hit download installer, it'll just go ahead and download that PowerShell script. And then you would also do the same thing with the batch file. And then those can also actually be pushed out through your RMM tool. But that gives you the ability to actually vet the scripts before they even get pushed out so that it's not, disrupting any sort of patch management that you might have, so that you can adjust the script manually if you need to in order to accommodate for any scopes that you guys might be doing. But yeah, just kind of wanted to reiterate this feature as a way to kind of, solve some of these software vulnerabilities as well as improve the Cork score up here. And the weight of the Cork score to the vulnerabilities and the compliance issues are the two biggest factors by far. So compliance issues, of course, are things connected or are things detected in certain software. Mainly looking at for the four main categories, it's binary. We're checking to see if the endpoint is in the RMM tool or the EDR tool, or it has a backup. And if it does have a backup, is the backup successful? And then for the SaaS side of things, that's more going to be like security awareness training. Does the inbox itself have email security? Is it backed up through a SaaS platform? Those are the big categories that we're looking at there. Email and PSA don't really have a ton of weight in the Cork score, simply because email is like, do they have a business email box, which is probably 99.9% of all of your clients. And then PSA, really, we just see from a domain and ticketing perspective. So the first four main controls over here have a greater influence than the back three. And then, of course, email and PSA are going to be lower than that. But yeah, if you want to see the Cork score go up, I would very much encourage the compliance issues and the vulnerabilities as the two main things to kind of solve. And then, from there, we should see much higher scores inside this environment if we decided to do that. So let's see here.
I'm going to take a quick pause. We did have Dave asked in the chat, and I see Arun answered this, but I just wanted to call this question out because I thought it was a good one. Back
Yeah,
to
for sure.
the peer comparisons. Dave asked if this comparison was only within your own client base or if it's amongst all endpoints in Cork, like within Cork's, entire environment.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, it is within all endpoints within Cork. So they would have to be, of course, like part of Cork as well. I wish we could see absolutely everybody. That would be amazing. And hopefully, one day we'll get there, right? Like everybody will have Cork and we'll be able to kind of make sure that everybody is having the best security practices in place. But yeah, right now it's people inside the Cork atmosphere. Export or run. Yes, that is actually, so I see that other suggestion by Dave at the top there. That is absolutely coming. That's one of the biggest things that we want to do. We right now too, we don't do any alerts based off of the software vulnerabilities. There's also nothing in terms of payout that the Cork score influences for now. We just really wanted to include these as purely informational for you guys so that you could be aware of the things that we're, kind of seeing inside the platform that maybe other platforms are not necessarily drawing attention to, or they're not paying as much attention to as, we would like to see from a security perspective. So if you're, worried about like, do I have to solve these things right now? The answer is no, right? But our goal is information and to make sure that you are fully aware of everything going on inside that environment. So. The other kind of softer news about the Cork score is that it's also included in one of the reports. So I believe it's actually the compliance summary. So now let me actually download this and bring this open. There we go. So the compliance summary is actually one of the reports that we very much recommend when doing QBRs with customers because it's a good way to just kind of show what you guys are doing as an MSP to them. And the Cork score is now included in that as well. So, the better that score gets, the colors will look better and it'll look good on the reports. And then that also is a way to show the overall security hygiene of that particular customer when it comes to kind of the aspects that we have outlined. So, but yeah, just to reiterate, actually on the compliance summary report, definitely use this as one of our best tools that we've seen for partners using in customer talks to show, how many events are they resolving. You can also select the scale or the time scale for this. So if you want to do it to show like your last week's worth of work or last month's worth of work or last quarter, you're able to do that. And yeah, it just gives a real good indicator in terms of what you guys are doing on the back end to make sure that honestly the customer doesn't even know you guys are working and everything proceeds for them as planned without any interruption. So actually, I'll ask Zoe real quick. Does the Cork score apply or is it on any other report that we have? I think it's only on compliance summary, correct?
Only on the compliance summary.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And I believe that's mainly because we consider that one to be kind of like the more main partner facing one. But yeah, right
Correct.
now we are also like very much entertaining ideas about how you guys would want to see reports regarding the Cork score, regarding software vulnerabilities. So please, if you guys have feedback about that, if you have any ideas about like, oh, hey, like I wish a vendor did this, but I can't find anybody who does when it comes to these kinds of reports, absolutely let us know. If not in the comments of this webinar, and let's say you have a brainwave tomorrow, in the top right of your corner, this is the flag for such things. So you can see when I hover over that, it says submit feedback or a ticket. So in terms of, fixing things inside the platform that might be misconfigured, you can use that to submit the ticket, but also to just use it as a feedback form as well. Pretty much every feature that we have introduced in the last 6 to 8 months, something like that, has been a result of partner feedback. Both our CRO and our CEO are on this call. They can very much attest to the fact that we are partner-led, partner-driven, and we truly do take that seriously. That is such a core value of our team over here. And we're fairly small, but we've all been in the MSP space for a while, and we really do care about kind of trying to make this the most usable platform that we can for you guys and include things that are relevant to your day to day so that you guys can have less headache overall and proceed with your days and hopefully have less emergencies overall. So I think the next or one of the final like smaller updates too is that we finally have Blackpoint Cyber. Let's see, it should be an EDR. Where is it? Yeah, right here. So we're actually one of the first vendors to actually have an integration with Blackpoint Cyber. They have made their API available to us through a couple months of emailing back and forth. But yeah, so if you are on Blackpoint at the moment, feel free to do a direct integration now. The ones that we were seeing who were attesting to it, you don't have to remove the attestation. You can actually just put this in, and it should recognize, that we want to observe that officially instead of doing it through attestation. And let's see here. Just want to check the rest of my notes, make sure we are good. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. The kind of like a teaser to end on, at least for my section here, is that I don't want to give too much away, but we have two really big things coming. The first one should be live at the end of April, or at least the third week of April, somewhere around there. But we are rehauling the back end matching algorithms a little bit. There's also going to be a front end component to that we'll probably go over on the next webinar. But that's going to be really, really nice for onboarding any new clients into the Cork platform. It's also going to really help with like asset consolidation and making sure that things are in the right place. One of our dev members has worked very hard on this for a long time. Honestly, this is something I'm very excited about just because in terms of the way that it works for the partner, it's going to be a lot more seamless. It's going to take a lot of the headache out of making sure that all of the assets are matched up properly, all the companies are matched up properly, et cetera. It's a very cool update. We can't wait to show that to you. And then a little bit further down the road, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to hype it too much, but we are dabbling into remediation through the actual platform itself. So that's all I'll say about that for now. But we have heard a lot of feedback about the desire to remediate problems from the Cork dashboard, and we are taking that very, very seriously. So, feedback has been heard about that, and I did want to acknowledge that we are doing something about that on this call, and then, mum's the word, but yeah, in future updates, we should be able to get you more news on those particular features. So with that, let me check the chat real quick, just to make sure everything is good. Yeah, it's not an April Fool's joke. Accurate. That is not, yeah, nothing about what I just said is an April Fool's joke, thankfully. But there is an April Fool's joke inside the platform, though. And if your platform is loading like this, feel free to click on your little icon over here. You'll see a pretty interesting button near the bottom. I highly suggest you click on it. It is amusing. And for older people on the call like myself, you will appreciate the throwback. I'll leave it at that. So
Might
with
make a
that,
little sense why our backgrounds look like this
yeah,
as well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been a couple. Yeah, it looks like Dave just found it from the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I highly encourage you to log into the Cork
Yeah.
Vantage platform today if you have not yet already. Have a little fun with your day.
I kind of want to make it a permanent part of the interface, but we'll see how that goes with marketing. So with that, I will actually pass it over to Arun. I'm not sure, Arun, if you had anything else that you wanted to add. If not, of course, it can go back to Zoe. But yeah, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, not much else. How you were bringing up the asset analysis and how this is kind of providing a new way to look at the data. I think that we're just going to keep looking at new ways to observe this data and present it to you guys so that you guys have the most actionable pieces of information, and looking forward to doing that. Again, if you guys have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, concerns, all of the above, feel free to send that inside the feedback form at the top.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
And then Zoe, do you have anything else?
I think that pretty much covers it for today. We were really excited to bring this update to you. And like Brandon said, we've got so much more coming in the next couple months. And keep checking back. We do send out our monthly newsletter at the end of every month that also kind of recaps all the features launched that month, new integrations, new marketing materials, one pagers, slicks that you can use with your clients. Lots of great content in that newsletter, and I try to make it, pretty skimmable, easy to read, because I know that we're all super busy and don't have time to be reading 1,000 different emails. So check that out, and then check back for the invites to these monthly release webinars. They happen on the first Wednesday of every month, so you can kind of keep that cadence in the back of your mind. We do have a couple trade shows coming up this month that we're attending. If you're going, we always love to see our partners in person. That's, kind of the highlight of our jobs here, right? We're in such a virtual world that when we get to make those connections, those like real human connections, those are so incredible. So we will be at Enable's Empower show coming up April 13th through the 15th, I believe. That one's in Florida. So just in a couple of weeks here. And then at the end of April, we will be in Las Vegas for Kaseya's Connect show. So two pretty big shows here that Cork will have a booth and be represented at. Again, if you're going, let us know. We'll probably send out a note ahead of time. We would love to catch up, see you at our booth, grab a coffee, grab a drink, grab some food, walk down the hall together, whatever it may be, and put a face to all of your names. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and give you all about 20-25 minutes back in your day if there's no other questions. Anything else that comes up in the meantime, though, don't hesitate to reach out. We're all here for you. Thank you for
Thanks,
joining
Sam.
us and have a great rest of your day.
Cool. Take
Bye,
care, everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Have a good one.